All right, welcome to Equal Time Soccer. We're here with three badass women who are coaching in the game today. We have Alli, well, my left to right, Alli Lipsher, Jen Larrick, and Tori Burnett, and they are from locations far and wide. You can see we're in two different cars, so they are busy. So I thought it would be fun for an introduction if you all go and we can start with Alli and then Jen and Tori basically saying your name and all the different hats you wear, because I think people really underestimate the sheer level of hustle it takes to be a coach basically at any level. So Alli, kick us off.
Yeah. I think just the fact that two of us are sitting in cars kind of indicates that we're always on the go. So I coach for the Gophers. I'm the goalkeeper coach for the Gophers, and I'm wearing my club coaching hat right now. I'm in Michigan with one of my club teams, and I also run my own goalkeeper academy as well. So a couple of different soccer hats, a few different soccer hats, I should say, for sure.
Aside from an actual giant, also other job that you do during the day.
It's yeah. Then one non-soccer hat too, for sure.
Right. Jen, what about you?
Yeah, I am the assistant coach at Augsburg University. I'm a girls director of coaching at BB United, and then I am involved with like a girl nonprofit in the Twin Cities.
Tori?
My name's Tori. I coach for McAllister College. Jen and I are rivals. Both
Yes.
love each other. And I'm
The
also
best rivalry.
What?
The best kind of rivalry.
The best. I also coach at Blaine Soccer. I have 4 teams. I was just with my littlest ones in U.S. Club Regionals. And I also run all of the marketing and social media stuff over there. So.
Wow. So yeah, I feel so incredibly lazy talking to you three. That's great. So one of the reasons we're so happy to have you all on is for Pride Month of June. So we are this month and last year we've tried to do promotions where we help support career athletes, and especially because I think soccer tends to get a brand or kind of a public persona as being really progressive, but as all of us know, and I think people who work in the game know, there really isn't even close to fair representation for women coaches, and I think the challenge is even harder for gay and lesbian coaches and players just because of how tough it is to kind of change these kind of standard practices we have for teams. But we're really lucky to have three badass women here to talk about their experience in the game. And I was hoping you could each talk a little bit about just kind of why it matters to you to be visible during Pride and just say yes to a kooky 4-person video chat like this. And maybe we start with Alli on the left.
Yeah, I think in general, it's just visibility is important, period, right? It's just like if you're a kid playing the game and you don't see someone who looks like you doing it at a higher level, sometimes it's hard to imagine yourself there, and I think that applies to any situation. So I'm sure that you guys can relate where you had someone who was visible to you and that was important and defining, and for that same reason it just kind of becomes a part of you, and it's very natural to want to be hopefully visible for someone else.
Mm-hmm. Jen, how about you?
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. And I think it's important to myself personally to just like be my full self in my coaching role. Yeah, I think like you never know what young people might need support in different avenues of their life, whether that's being a girl at school who like wants to play soccer and like only boys are playing and they like might need support in that, or whether they're starting to realize or navigate their sexuality. I think it's really important to just be yourself, and people can reach out if they know like who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tori.
Yeah, I think just you need to be your authentic self. The world has so many different people in it, but it needs one of you, and being you and exactly who you are is extremely important because, like, just reiterating what they were saying, someone is watching you and someone needs to see you be authentic and see what that looks like. When we're wearing all these different hats, we can also be ourselves with those hats. And so that allows people to then, again, picture themselves in our shoes and hopefully, do better things than we're even doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think for folks who don't follow the game super close, or maybe they watch like the national team, or maybe they just watch like their local college team or something, I think for me, it's what I've noticed too, and I think Jen, your work with Like a Girl kind of hits at some of this, that the club scene is really, there are so many women's college teams that like the girls soccer system has a lot of resources in it because people want to get those scholarships and they want to play at those high levels. And I think that means there's like kind of a high dollar, like glossy vibe on the club scene in a certain way, where it's like it becomes a very, to me at least, it's like a very suburban, like clean cut like brand to this, like, or that's like the outward looking brand of this like broader like soccer system in the US, is like rich suburban like vibe. And for some reason I think that just tends to have like some extra connotation of just being a little bit conservative or old school, or like overly like strict in the sense of like identity and all those things. I don't know if that's played out for you as players, but I mean for players and coaches who are in situations where maybe they're not sure how to be good allies in a situation like that, what are some things they can do to kind of be either a good friend and supportive teammate, or if you're a coach and you're not really sure, you've never been in the situation to be kind of a public ally, what are some things you can do? And maybe we start with Tori and go the other direction.
I think the biggest help throughout my, experience, my collegiate career, is just be inclusive. Just ask. Because it's really difficult when you are in a room and everyone's talking about their relationships and you get left out. And it's just one of those things where just, give us a seat at the table. It's the same as everyone else's relationship, and we would love to tell you about our amazing significant others.
Or our really weird date we went on. Or something.
Right, or whatever, right? Whatever romantic gossip we have, like, everyone wants to talk about that.
Right.
And so allowing us to be in that conversation is one of the biggest ways you can be an ally. As a coach, as a teammate, whoever, like, just ask. And I think the other thing, too, is some people get caught up in, not knowing what to say initially. And that's fine. Like, if you have an awkward conversation, okay, those happen constantly. Mm-hmm. But making sure that you follow back up later and just be like, hey, like, I know that wasn't like a great conversation, but this is what I meant by it. I still care about you. I still, want you to feel included, whatever that conversation is. But continuously reaching out, continuously providing that, open and inclusive, welcoming environment as a coach, as a player, teammate, whatever it is. But we can all do that. And that just makes everyone's experience easier, and it makes the team feel more like a team as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jen?
Yeah, no, I think that's all super well said. My thought is that, like, language is important and powerful. So just, once during the summer, I was coaching a camp, and a young boy used gay as, like, a negative insult, and I just, like, pulled him aside and, like, had a quick conversation about, language. And I think for sport fans, for like young people involved in sport, like the language that we use sets the tone for whether this is an inclusive space or not. And especially for young people who are maybe starting to like think about their sexuality. Like if you are on a team where like gay is used as a negative insult, then like you're not going to be comfortable like talking to those people about your lived experience as a queer person, or like maybe just might quit that team altogether, right? And I think like I think sport as a whole has a lot of work to do to be more inclusive, and I think like language can be a really good starting point for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think you guys you're both spot on. And to expand, I guess on the end of Tori's point, I think that the conversations are important and the questions are important. I mean, it's always hard to start a conversation that you don't know how to start. Like the awkward conversations that we're having there, it's always hard to start. But I mean, the bottom line is just have them, right? Like having a seat at the table, being able to have those conversations around language. They all have to start somewhere. And it's always that first step. It's always, going to be the hardest. So I mean, my advice, if I had any, is to go for it, because it's, you know, we've all had the awkward conversation with a teammate or a coach or a parent where you're like, but they say something like, you know, I know someone in a female relationship, or just like something like that, and it's kind of awkward, and you're like, cool, like, great, like, you're good, that's fine, like, let's just keep having this conversation. And that is really important. Like, if they can see you be comfortable and like embrace them, like, they know that it's going to go both ways.
Right, it's like giving them permission to keep like trying.
Totally. 100%.
And I didn't think about this until Tori, you were mentioning kind of like just ask the question and kind of like say the thing, and I didn't realize that I somehow have 3 people where none of you are from Minnesota. So I was gonna make a joke. We're very lucky to have somehow stolen you for the state, and now we have you. But Tori, you're originally from Colorado and came here for school, and Jen, you're from the East Coast, and you originally went to school in Florida and then transferred here, and then Alli, you know, you're from the beautiful state of Hawaii, so you win, and then you're living here now. And I think in Minnesota, there's probably at least an extra like 1 or 2% of the unspoken element of just, you know, not talking about it, and you know, only talking behind people's backs, which happens everywhere. But in Minnesota, just the passive aggressive extra element of living in the Midwest, and like no one says anything. We only talk to each other in like whispers, and it's all absurd. I think that element is so important. Just being willing to feel, just being willing to be wrong. Like if you're a teammate or like a coach, like being willing to be like, it sounded stupid, whatever.
Well, and I think on top of that too, like it's a difficult position for us sometimes, because as members of the LGBTQ community, the burden is on us to have those conversations or to start those conversations. So to be an ally and a great teammate and a great coach, if you can help us start those conversations, because we're comfortable with it, but it's so refreshing when you have somebody that's like, you know, again, just taking that leap and asking those questions. So I think that's really important too, to remember the burden lies on us. So as much as we can have some help.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think especially right now, being a World Cup year, people are kind of seeing more of the visible like gay athletes on the women's team getting a lot of like press, and like Megan Rapinoe just had an amazing quote after the game today where she's hoping the US France is a complete shit show circus or like whatever her quote was. Just amazing. And so you have these really, really outspoken, really cool, like visible, talented as hell, like famous athletes who get all of this attention. And so I think that level of attention is so amazing, but then it also gives people the idea that it's kind of like, oh, everything's cool and everything's chill, and we've all like made it to this place where, you know, a handful of our key players are all out and proud and visible, and they're getting, you know, marketing dollars, and they're having success and all these things. But I think, you know, we as fans even just in a non-World Cup year, or like just for our local teams, what are some things we can do to help make like our broader conversation more friendly? Or, you know, what can we do as like readers of journalism or as fake journalists like myself to help elevate the right kind of things? I mean, what are some, because a lot of what I asked you about before is almost kind of like the internal team structure, but what are some things we can do as fans, you know, to help make it more of a comfortable environment, or, you know, when we're trying to share content, or when we're trying to make it a positive thing? What can we do as fans to do that? Maybe we start with Jen right in the middle.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if I have a great answer to that off the top of my head, but I think back to like the national team when I was growing up, like the 91ers, and like none of them were like out and loud and proud. And I don't know if any of them are queer people. I don't know, but like I do wonder like what the current women's national team like means to our like current young generation of girls growing up, and like what kind of shift that's having on our soccer demographic and queer community moving forward. Even today when Rapinoe was taking, I think it was their second PK, I saw like a pride flag right behind the goal, and I was like, what a cool moment. You know, in that moment after the last World Cup when Abby Wambach ran over and kissed her wife at the time in the stands. Like, that's an iconic moment for women's soccer, and also just like what a beautiful moment for the queer community. And I think like the positive consequences, outcomes of those like moments of being out in the community are we won't see them for years, or they're meaning things to young people now. But I'm so glad that they're happening. I guess that's my best answer. I don't know what exactly we can do, but I'm so happy to see this current national team.
Yeah. What about you, Tori?
I'm trying to think too. I think again, it just goes back to us being visible and you giving us a platform. And also remembering that on top of all of this, like, the coverage should be about the athlete.
Yeah.
Period. Megan Rapinoe gets press because she is a baller who just so happens to be dating Sue Bird, who's also a baller. But, like, you know what I mean? So I think it's those levels. And again, I think it goes back to Jen and the language that we use. I don't know if you guys saw that tweet about someone stupid tweeted something like, Zach Ertz visits wife in the World Cup. And it's like, you can't, it's wife. It's not Julie Ertz, the total, the best six in the world potentially. Like, come on. So I think it's just remembering that, right? It's not like we are not gay athletes. We are athletes who love who we love. And that's it. So I think it's making sure that language is clear, that, there's coverage because of what they're doing on the field. And then treating them like anyone else. Like, if you're covering, PK, you always have to mention Shakira. Just always. It happens. But, so same type of thing. I think it's an equality in that level, and also just remembering, first and foremost, we're athletes. And we just happen to all, like, pretty kick-ass women. So.
Well, and I think it's a little bit of it, like you described it, as the whole... such and such's wife is like playing in this game. It's just those language changes are just being willing to change. You just have to be willing to, like, it's not about you. Just like change the word you're using. It's not a big deal. You learned to use this certain type of word or this certain phrase when you were like 8. You can learn a new way to say something when you're in your
awareness.
20s, 30s, 40s. It's sort of like just, it's not about you. If someone else wants a different label to identify themselves, that's fine. You're doing great as a straight white man. There's no challenges in the entire world. You were born a king. You can use a different word. Alli, what about you?
Yeah, I think, two really important points. Like, it's the platform, it's the language, and just within that, I think also the point that it's just the recognition that we've come a really long way. We're doing really good things, and we're still going to have to fight the fights that we're going to have to fight along the way. Like, we're not there, like you're saying. And that goes beyond this conversation into so many others, but I just think that the recognition of that, and kind of, it sounds a little bit aggressive, but like just being prepared to be like, have those conversations, to be like, no, it's Julie Ertz's husband is coming to visit her at the World Cup, not the other way around. And I don't know, at some point it's not letting it get under your skin, but also being able to sort of respond to it in the ways that are productive, and all the things that we have to do all the time anyway.
Yeah.
Well, no, you go, Jen.
I was just gonna say, I think maybe a final thought is like policy. So, Title IX protects people of different sexual orientations, but I do know certain private schools where like queer student athletes don't feel comfortable to like tell their coaches about their orientation, or like sometimes coaches don't feel comfortable. I've been to conferences with gay women who are professors at schools in Iowa, and they like wait a couple years before they share about their private lives. And...
Maybe right until after they get tenure, like,
right,
just like don't want to risk it legitimately.
I think the like public institutions that do have policies that protect people of different sexual orientations, like, let's enforce those policies, and then maybe different private institutions that don't, I think could look into creating policies if that's something they're interested in advocating for.
Well, and one last one that I didn't throw in the document, but I just had to remember it because Alli, your wife Chris, had such an amazing and such a like widely shared piece where she was basically writing a letter to herself, from when she came out, and it was just like the most touching, like emotional thing I've seen in so long. But it was so widely shared here because I think it was so authentic and real. But it's also just like describing a moment that you guys like sort of referenced earlier that can just be like, how do you start it? Like, what do you do? I mean, is there anything you would tell young athletes now if they're struggling with like how to deal with that particular step in the process of, is there any advice you would give in terms of how to handle that situation, or is it so personal that it's kind of tough to describe for someone else?
Yeah, it's so personal. It is. I think everyone finds their own words, their own voice, their own strength at different times. I mean, going back to some of the conversations we were having around what can, allies do, coaches do, all of this. I mean, I think our part is definitely providing the visibility. And if kids have all those other things in place around them, the support systems and the environments around them, then it's certainly going to be much, much easier for that to be a more positive part of their experience. Mm-hmm. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Jen or Tori?
I don't know. I think it's just, you have to remember everyone's on their own time schedule, and it's not a race. No one's timing you there's no cap on anything. So I think it's just understanding, like Alli was saying, you find your strength and you find a time that works for you and you just go. And it's just remembering that, at the end of the day, your teammates will still be your teammates. Like, everyone's still going to be, everything's the same, even though it's different. And the right people will stick around, and, that's life. And that's hopefully someday, we're progressing to a place where that doesn't need, those conversations don't even need to be had. There's just, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. However, you just, the right people will stick around, and they'll be there through everything. And that's what you got to stick to and remember. Mm-hmm. So,
for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I would just say that, like, there's no like right way to like come out or like share that part of your life with someone, but I think there is like a kind and caring way to like receive that information if you're on the other end of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think like if someone's trusting you with that information, that's like a really powerful moment where you can be like the best ally. And I think you gotta like respect that moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, you guys, this was so fantastic. Thank you so much to Alli Lipsher, Jen Larrick, and Tori Burnett for coming on for our first ever 4-person video and podcast conversation. And what a fantastic reason to do it for Pride Month 2019. So every new follower we get, we'll give $1 to Athlete Ally. We'll probably find many more excuses to give funds to this cause in the future. But thank you so much for being willing to share your stories and your advice and your expertise as coaches and former players. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.